and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyaso. Tonight, celebrities join members of the I Stand with Nigeria group to protest in Lagos in spite of the absence of popular musician Two-Face. Pro and anti-government protests hold across the country on economic situation in the country. Federal government says it understands the pains of Nigerians and is doing everything possible to address their concerns. And tech giants Apple, Facebook and 95 others join the legal battle against President Trump's immigrants ban order.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves grows by 8.39% in the first 5 weeks of 2017.
On sports news tonight, Yakubu Egbeni is set to return to English football.
And Maokwe Ogun from Abuja, the federal government meets with members of the organized private sector ahead of the launch of its economic revival plan.
We begin tonight from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, where in spite of several warnings by the police, hundreds of Nigerians, mostly youth, today turned out in their large numbers to join the I Stand with Nigeria group, who are protesting against some government policies. The protesters marched from the National Stadium, Surulere, through Ojuelegba, before they were stopped from gathering at the Freedom Park at Ojota, Lagos, where there was a huge security presence. Our correspondent Loretta Chogo reports that the arrival of popular musician Charles Oputa, otherwise known as Charlie Boy, energized the protesters.
One voice Nigeria! Nigerians are yet better!
45-year-old National Stadium Surulere is the point of convergence. Most of them youth, with placards expressing their grievance and demands from the federal government. Then the vocal demands begin amidst the heavy presence of the police.
As long as we mobilize ourselves, as long as we conscientize ourselves, as long as we speak to ourselves, as long as we sacrifice, Nigeria can be a better place. Yes. And I'm sure the beginning of a better place is where we are from. Whether Two-Face is here is insignificant.
It has become clear.
In his reaction, popular music artist Two-Face Idibia insists he's still in support of the rally, but only backed out because of security reasons.
I noticed a whole lot of people were trying to hijack the whole process. I only decided to, back out of the physical protest due to security reasons. But it's not as if I'm not still standing by the things that I said or the things that I'm feeling about, governance in Nigeria for a long time now.
The peaceful protest then moves from the National Stadium onto the streets with a changed plan of heading to the National Theatre, but now to the Freedom Park in Ojota. They are joined by other protesters and top music icon Charlie Boy. However, the police will not allow any further movement, and so the plan is reversed and the National Theatre becomes the choice location. According to the coordinators of the protests, the choice of the two iconic locations is to show to the world the decadence in the structures of over 45 years.
My people, don't let me deceive you. Nothing can give us total liberation except a revolution in this country.
it is not about the leaders of the peaceful protests only. Other Nigerian youth say it's time to take their destinies in their hands in the face of current economic challenges.
What actually drew me to it is the fact that it's the youth this time that came out for it. We're tired of having the 70-year-olds. Yes, we can talk for ourselves.
The Commissioner of Police, Fatai Owosheni, says he's impressed the protest isn't hijacked after all.
The officers and men and the supporting sister agencies, they have behaved professionally well, and it's commendable.
The message from the protest is very clear, and this message is being sent to the state and central government to do the needful within their powers and ensure that the economy of Nigeria is reshaped and the cost of living deliberately brought down. From National Theatre, Igobu, Loretta Chiogo reporting for Channels Television News.
And in the nation's capital, pro- and anti-government groups also marched to the streets of Abuja to register their feelings about the situation in the country. Now, while the anti-government protesters criticized the government's economic policies, the pro-government protesters applauded the government for what they say it's achieved. The two groups of protesters took their march to the presidential villa, but armed security operatives formed a barricade to prevent them from gaining access.
For 2 weeks, Nigerians waited in anticipation for two nationwide protests, one in support of the government and the other against the government, which was to be led by popular Nigerian musician Two-Face Idibia. About 48 hours to the proposed protest, Two-Face pulled out of the protest, citing security concerns as advised by the police. But this did not stop the protest in Abuja. Two groups of protesters, the pro-government and the anti-government protesters, converged on the Unity Fountain in Abuja. The anti-government protesters are criticizing the government, saying it has failed the citizenry.
Many Nigerians believe that government has sold us a false prospectus and doesn't care about what happens to us. There is no empathy, there's no compassion, there is no care, and that is the problem.
It's the same issues that you discuss in the markets, that the price of essential commodities have skyrocketed beyond the reach of even the rich Nigerian, ordinary Nigerian. We are saying also that the fight against corruption must be all-inclusive.
On the other side of the same venue, the pro-government protesters insist that the federal government has lived up to its campaign promises.
We are also here in this country under Buhari that the vulnerable, the extremely poor, are now being paid 5,000 naira monthly stipends to keep them going. Under Buhari's regime, let me tell you this, an average poor man is a farmer. Yes. He promised to fight corruption. Is he not fighting it? He's fighting it. He promised to recoup our money from those that have stolen it. Is he not doing it? He's doing it. He promised to deliberately transfer wealth from the government to the vulnerables. Is he not doing it?
From the Unity Fountain, the two groups head for the presidential villa. But their march ends here as armed policemen barricade the entrance of the presidential villa. For many of these anti-government protesters, they will continue to protest against the government until they see the change they are demanding. And for the pro-government protesters, they vow to continue the protest in support of the president's programs and policies.
If you are doing good thing, it can be misconstrued.
Similar protests were held across the country to protest against some government policies. From Oyo to Osun, Edo and Rivers State, the protesters had the same message: the demand for change.
Enough is enough. That's the new cry resonating across the country. Youths frustrated by unemployment, crime, economic hardship, strike actions both in the health and education sector, an endless list of issues. In Osun State, marchers flocked the streets supported by music. Their placards bear their thoughts. For this man, the president should not take this protest in bad faith, but see it as an opportunity for redirection.
I believe this protest is even a great support for the president. Because if you are not doing well and people tell you are not doing well, it's because they love you. We can as well applaud him till he messes himself up or messes us all up. So I think supporting the president, it's a plus. That we are going out to say, Mr. President, enough is enough. Things are not working.
The fever is also felt in Oyo State. Everyone crying for one thing.
We voted in this government nearly 2 years ago because we believe the previous governments are so wasteful and they are mismanaging the country. So it is a bereft of idea for anybody to tell us that it is the past government that is causing the hardship that we are experiencing in 2017.
The same is experienced in Edo, where youths lament the situation of things in the country.
$1 now is 500 naira to $1. It is a shame if our economist team, if they cannot take our country out of the mess we are in right now, in the next few months, things will be worse.
Protesters in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, are however prevented from gathering by men of the Nigerian police. But this man says it cannot stop the message.
The cost of commodities are on the increase every day. This morning, $1 is 506 naira. But the government of Muhammadu Buhari promised us that $1 will be 1 naira when he takes over office. Look at what we are seeing.
Voicing out grievances peacefully is normal in any democratic setting, and how better it will be if the concerns of the citizens are taken seriously by those in authority to avoid a breakdown of law and order.
We hear you loud and clear, and these are the words of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in reaction to the protests in parts of the country by some Nigerians. He also affirmed that he's not under any pressure from any quarters to resign, adding that the president is hale and hearty, having spoken with him earlier today. Our correspondent, Oreoluwa Shonibare, reports.
When President Muhammadu Buhari embarked on his annual leave to the United Kingdom, it came as no surprise that many would begin to speculate about his well-being. And his recent message to the National Assembly, where he pushed forward his return to the country, only helped to further ignite the controversy. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has however broken silence with an assurance that the President is hale and hearty.
We had a fairly long conversation. He was interested in knowing about the process, the budget process, and how far we have gone. And as you know, we had a meeting today with the private sector on the economic recovery and growth plan. And he was also interested in knowing what was happening with that, with the economic recovery and growth plan, and what we are doing with the private sector.
The number two man also shared his conversation with the President, particularly on the protests taking place in some parts of the country.
And you know, some of what the feedback of what people are saying about the economy, so is in good shape. We are very chatty, and we had a conversation.
The Vice President had earlier re-echoed through his Twitter account the administration's readiness to address all issues raised by the protesters. When asked if the burden was too heavy to bear, he calmly responded,
I'm absolutely under no pressure to resign. In any event, I was voted for by the people of this nation, myself and Mr. President.
Knowing what is happening to the leader of a nation is important, especially when it borders around health. Because when all is well with the head, the rest of the body has nothing to fear. Orolu Ashunibare, Channels Television News.